I have some really good news for you. If you're 50 years old or approaching 50, you know what? You're either in you time now or you're very close to you time, right? We spend a lot of our adult life raising our children, paying off our mortgage, saving for retirement, saving for our kids' college education, and it can seem like it's never going to be our time. It's never going to be our time to enjoy. And you know, if you're not careful, you can easily go through you time and not even know it and look back and said, nobody told me it's you time. So that's what this video is about. This is Azul's way of telling you, if you're close to 50, this is you time. This is the youth of your senior years, and I want to make sure that you take full advantage of it. And many people might be looking at their bank accounts and saying, Azul, are you crazy? I don't have $1 million. I don't have $2 million. How can it be my time now? And the money aspect of this is important, and we're going to come back to that at the end of the video. But I want to talk a little bit about you time first and what you time looks like, because as I said at the beginning, for so many of us, we've lived this life where really we have a lot of responsibilities, and our primary focus is helping other people, whether that's our young kids, whether that's our aging adult parents. But I think it's important. We don't want to end life and look back and say, I never got my time. And so you time is now. And so here's a question for you. We're going to talk about money, but you think about your 3 most valuable resources. And those are your time, your health, and your money, right? If you have those 3, you have freedom, you have a lot of flexibility in your life. But here's a question not enough of us ask ourselves. And that is, which of those 3 do you think you're likely to run out of first? And for the vast majority of us, I would argue we're much more likely to run out of health or time before we run out of money. Now, we still need to plan for the money side of things, but I want to put the priorities in the right place. If we're likely going to run out of our health before we run out of our money, if we're likely to run out of time before we run out of money, we should really be thinking about how we make the most of that. And then third on that list is the money side of things. So, you know, most financial advisors spend 90% of their time focusing on the money side of things. But I think it's important to remind ourselves, what are the things that put a skip in our step, that put joy in our hearts, and that we're excited to do, because after a lifetime of responsibilities, it can be super easy to forget about that, right? So I want to talk about re-sparking those interests. If you're thinking, yeah, you know, what else would I do if I'm not working? You know, and a lot of folks are thinking, oh, I need to fast forward through this section because you know what you want to do. And that's great, but don't fast forward through, because I think there's some things that all of us can benefit from here. And the first one is really taking quality time to think about some other aspects of our life. Spend some reflective time and think about what would give us the most joy. So you might have something that gives you more joy, but how do we optimize on that joy? How do we optimize on that excitement? And there's a great book written by a gentleman by the name of Arthur Brooks. I've mentioned it before. It's called From Strength to Strength. And it really talks about how we build on things that have given us purpose, that have given us joy in the past, and we build on those to find our next passions. So that's one thing. I would encourage you to do some reflective work by reading books like that. There's also another excellent book that's called Solve for Happy by Mo Gawdat, G-A-W-D-A-T. Super smart individual. He headed up a major division for Google, kind of their new ventures, their moonshots, the next generation of Google, the thing that Google is hoping will take them to the next business. So super bright guy. And unfortunately, he lost one of his sons when his son was only 20 years old. There was a appendectomy that they had done, and unfortunately there were some complications in the surgery. And so Mo completely changed the tact of his life and really looked at what does it take for us to be happy, for us to own that happiness and to optimize on happiness. So many of us are optimizing on our responsibilities and our money, and that's important, but it's not all inclusive. So that's another book, and these fall into the self-reflective work. The other thing I want to encourage you is to kind of get out of your rut. It's easy to get into a rut. It's easy for all of us, myself included. And I've shared on this video in the past, during the pandemic, initially I was very, very fearful of the pandemic. But then my wife encouraged me to get out of that fear zone and to be the adventurer that she knows and she loves. So she forced me to go on an airplane trip with her, and it was nowhere near as scary for me as I thought. And that opened up the door to ultimately me working remotely from 30 different countries over a 3-year period. And what that taught me, a lot of these trips I had to do solo, but one of the things that taught me was when you get out of your normal element and you travel, there's all of these preconceived notions that we have for ourselves. And if you can get out of the kind of the shell and the boundaries that being who you've always been puts you in, and travel is a wonderful way to do that. In particular, solo travel. You're seeing new cultures. You're being introduced to new people and new ways of thinking about things. Another thing that worked for me, I'm not saying it works for everybody, but actually selling the house that I had lived in and my wife and I had raised our family in. We had lived in that house for about 20 years, and as much as it was a very comfortable nest, it was also in some ways holding myself and my wife back. It was too comfortable, and shaking things up a little bit was a good thing. So we talked about reflective work. That's reading books, watching videos like this, podcasts, self-reflective work. Another thing is experiences getting out of your normal routine. And then the third thing would be kind of taking that, getting out of your normal routine and expanding on that. And I call that mini retirements, the opportunity to try things for a period of time. Maybe you can get a sabbatical. Maybe you can get a couple extra weeks of vacation. And you try something, not for a couple weeks, but for a month or maybe a couple months. You may have to do that unpaid, and I know that that's difficult to do, but I think it pays for itself in spades. If you've always thought you want to travel, maybe you and your spouse check that out. If you've always thought you want to volunteer for a local not-for-profit that you have a heart for, maybe you try working 20, 30, 40 hours a week for that organization for a month and just seeing what that feels like. So the message is, this is you time, but you have to know how to take advantage of that you time. And that's really what this video is about, is taking advantage of it. But I said that you also have to look at the money aspects of it. And I think that's really important. And so I want you to watch this video here, kind of the second part, which is how much do I need to retire? And spoiler alert, it's probably a lot less than what you think. So be sure to watch that video.